Hi, everybody.
Hello there.
I'm Jerry.
And I'm Linda.
We have a show for you today. I have been looking forward to this for a long time.
You sure have.
You know, when I'm growing up, I had a hero. It's a baseball player. But since I've grown up, I realize who the heroes are. They're people like we are with today. We're with a 99-year-old survivor of World War II. He's more than a survivor. He had a heck of a career over there. We are so lucky to be with him today, and we'd like to introduce him right now, Mr. Irving Locker.
You're very welcome, and I'm delighted that you're here because I want this to get out to the people because they have to know that freedom is not free, and I'm doing everything that I can to provide that information. I was born on November 8th, 1924, and I'm the baby of 7 children, and we were very poor money-wise, but very rich in loving and kindness and taking care of our brothers and sisters, etc. My mother and father, they were angels, so that's it. We were very poor, so we had to work all the time. With 7 of us, we delivered Jewish papers to the public. So my older brother would meet the train in New Jersey at 3 o'clock in the morning and get all the papers and bring them home, and every one of us had a route with bicycles. So I was brought up working, and as far as I'm concerned, I got a business head. I think like a businessman, and that's wonderful. So, and of the 7 children, I'm the only one who graduated high school because of the fact of having to go to work, etc. So, but I graduated high school, and at that particular time is when Roosevelt, of course, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Because other than that, Roosevelt didn't want to go into the war, did everything not to go in. Once they bombed Pearl Harbor, he was forced to go in, and then he drafted everything. So,
How did you feel when you got the notice of draft?
well, to be very honest with you, not that good, because my 2 brothers were drafted before me, my 2 brother-in-laws were drafted, and what they wrote home was not pleasant and not great, and nothing that I would say, oh my God, I can't wait to get there. But the fact remains that because of the war and because of my outlook on life, I went and was very successful at it. Because in life, sometimes a disappointment turns into an opportunity. If you have the right attitude, it has worked for me.
You're 18 years old,
Yep,
and you're drafted.
I'm drafted.
Where did they send you?
We went to Fort Dix in New Jersey, okay? And from Fort Dix, in Fort Dix, all they do, people have to know, that you're not assigned to an outfit. They teach you how to march, they teach you how to shoot a gun, they give you a uniform, you have to learn to take orders, and that's the regime there. From there, then I was assigned to the 116th AAA Gun Battalion. AAA stands for Anti-Aircraft, Anti-Tank, and Artillery. The guns were 9.5 tons with a 15-foot barrel. So the shells that we fired, people, unbelievable. You think of a shell, that 1-inch shell. When they showed me what the shells were like, it's 3 feet tall and weighed 45 pounds each shell. So it was quite an undertaking to that point. And because I was brought up in a family like that, I got along with the men that were alongside of me. People come in, strangers, you know, they don't talk to each other. But I was brought up with that type of a family. And I became a corporal and I became a sergeant. And then every sergeant who gave me my basic training was under me in combat. Every sergeant who taught me what I knew was under me in combat because of the things that I did with my fellow men. I used to tell jokes and make them laugh and break the monotony. So it worked out pretty good.
So, from the time that you were drafted, how much time passed before you found your feet on foreign soil?
A year, almost a year of training and back and forth. And then, of course, then we went on to Queen Elizabeth and started to go. We were in Ireland, then England, Ireland, and then, of course, the invasion.
You went over on a cruise ship.
Oh yeah, we went over on a cruise. Oh yeah, it was delightful. The dining room was marvelous, you know.
You arrived overseas. This is a true piece of history. You were involved in the D-Day invasion.
D-Day Battle of the Bulge right into Berlin. Now I have to emphasize, it's so true. The Americans stopped at the Elbe River at the end of the war. Then the Russians went into Berlin to try to settle the town. And they were having a lot of trouble. Anybody who could understand German at that particular time was sent in to Berlin or the outskirts of Berlin to try to help settle it out. And I could understand German because the Jewish language of Yiddish is a derivative of German. So I couldn't understand verbal, but I could pick a word here, pick a word and make a sentence out. But I carried a German Luger at that time that I took off of an army pilot. And it spoke German very, very well. Because when I held it to their head and clicked it a few times, they knew exactly what I was talking about. So, and it's from 1916, the original date of that.
A German Luger.
German Luger, 1916.
Incredible. So now today, the soldiers can't bring souvenirs home, can they?
No, well, that's another story. I'm going to get in trouble for that. But I'm not going to talk about it. When we were drafted out of the school, a lot of the men were there that I knew, right from our own town. It was in my outfit. When it came to the end of the war, we took everything apart because we were going back to New Jersey. I had reunions for 15 years after the war with all of my men that came back from there. So it came to this, I took a handle off, took everything apart. So the officer said, the handle, go ahead, and this, go ahead. When we got to the reunion, we put it all back together again. So all of the stuff you see here, we put back together again, and that's how I got it home. So not only that, but people who had it before to do it. Now, one of the main things that I must talk about is in the anti-aircraft, when we shot a plane down, it was my job as a staff sergeant to go out to make sure that the plane wouldn't fly anymore and to look for information from the pilots, where they came from, any literature they had, any letters they had, anything that could give us a clue where they came from, where they were stationed, etc. with it. So that was my job with it. So, and then at the end of it, I would use a hand grenade to destroy the plane. The hand grenade is right there if you want to show it to them. I would use a hand grenade to destroy the plane so that it wouldn't fly anymore. I would make sure of that.
What did you call that among the boys?
Pineapple.
A pineapple grenade. And you can show our viewers, it's hollowed out in the bottom, so there's no charge in that anymore.
And there's no charge in anything, you know. And I lecture quite a bit. I'm out lecturing 2 or 3 times a week now to that point of lectures. So that's it.
Let's go back to D-Day.
Okay.
Were you on one of the amphibious vehicles that came in from the ship?
Absolutely. That's called a Higgins boat, where the front door lays down. And in the I must talk about this as well. Anybody who wants to see the things that we did, they go on YouTube, Irving Locker, My Story. Anybody can go on YouTube, and then you'll see all of the pictures and see what we went through, and it explains everything there. And then that explains the Higgins boat. The Higgins boat is where the front door lays down. And in the picture, I explained everything, that we got about 11 feet out or something. And the pilot, the lieutenant says, the pilot of the boat says, get your men ready because I'm going to drop. And the lieutenant takes his gun out, walks over to him and says, you take it in, my men don't drown, or you're never going to see your family again. I'd like to tell you what he really said, but I'm on television, so I can't do that.
And you had a big heavy pack on.
Big heavy, a 27-pound pack on, a rifle, a 3-pound helmet, everything that you owned.
And you were at Utah Beach.
Utah Beach.
Were you under fire when you guys came in?
Absolutely. There were men dead in the water, dead on the shore. I've never seen as many dead men in my life coming in. And like I said, but for the grace of God go I. And I must tell everybody on television, I'm not religious, but I thank God then every single minute of the day that I'm alive and well. Until today, I'm 99 years old, and I still thank God because he did a hell of a job for me with that.
Once you reach the beach on D-Day and you're under fire, what's going through your mind?
One big thing, the long life we thought we were going to have could be shortened with one little bullet or stepping on a mine. We all talked about that same thing, about the long life we thought we were going to have. So you talk about thanking God. Every minute, every day is what we did. Bed floating in the water, not being able to hit that beach at all. You have to imagine you're coming off of that Higgins boat. Wow, it's amazing. There's so much that people have no idea about, fooling them as to where we were going to come in. It's amazing that they have no idea. And between Eisenhower and between the British and the Canadians and everybody else talking about who, what, when, and even with the weather. We were supposed to come in on the 5th. The weather was so bad we couldn't come in on the 5th. But the meteorologist said you could go in on the 6th. So it was postponed into that. There's so much behind the lines that nobody knows about, that we talk about it and look up and because we are interested in it, but that's basically it. People have no idea, and I give it. I'm 5 foot 1 inch, so I was a hero to that point, and everybody hated me or loved me because I was asleep before these guys like you at 6 foot, 6 foot 2, 6 foot 3 to dig a hole and crawl in to get their body into that hole, and I was already fast asleep with it, you know. I was very good with my men, and as I said, with a business head. When you look at that movie, you'll see it's so interesting how we talk about it. I worked in a gas station before I was drafted. I learned how to drive a tractor trailer. When we got into service, the first thing they said is we're all 18-year-old kids. Who could drive a tractor trailer? I raised my hand. Oh my God, what an opportunity. I won't be out in the weather. It'll be wonderful. I don't have to march, carry a gun. So they said, okay, go to the motor pool. I went to the motor pool, and a lieutenant about 6'5" looks down at me. He says, "What are you doing here?" I said to him, "I want to drive that tractor trailer." He says, "You can't even reach the handle to open the back door." He says, "Go to the machine guns, they need it." So you talk about a disappointment turning into an opportunity. I went to the machine guns. The sergeant looks at me and he says to me, "Oh, everybody on my gun's Italian. You're going to fit right in." I look at him, I said, "I'm not Italian, I'm Jewish." Buffalo, get out of here. Go to the big guns. True story. Go to the big guns. The big guns are 9.5 tons each gun. The barrel of the gun is 15 feet long. So you can size. I could shoot 20 or 30,000 feet up into the air. The shell was 3 feet tall and weighed 45 pounds. So you can imagine what was going through my head at that particular time. But the big thing basically is one thing. Sometimes a disappointment turns into an opportunity. Because of that, and because of the gun, and because of me taking over certain things, they made me an acting corporal. And from a corporal, I became a sergeant. And then they needed somebody, when they move from one position to another, they need somebody in charge of the 4 guns, which they didn't have at the time. So I became a staff sergeant. Every sergeant who gave me my basic training was under me in combat because of that. So that's the history. But I got along with people, and I made them laugh. I kept a joke. But I also became the procurement officer. Understanding German, everything had to be brought to us. People have no idea. Everything, food, water, medicine, everything had to be brought to us because we lived in a field. Couldn't be near a building, couldn't be near anything else because of the size of the gun. So anyway, that was, so I became a procurement officer. I would take a detail and go out to the barns, see what I could get for my men, steal chickens and eggs and whatever I could get out, hay and straw to put into the hole to do that. And it was the Battle of the Bulge. It was a bulge in the area basically with that. But that was called the Battle of the Bulge. It was the worst of the war. That was the worst part of it at all because of the trees, because of where we were. It was very, very difficult. And Patton saved our life getting us out of there, because otherwise we would have been dead totally. They destroyed a couple hundred tanks. They had us all surrounded. We couldn't do anything about it at the end of the Battle of the Bulge. But once we did that, and Patton pulled us out, that was it. There was 20 degrees below zero, or something like that. It was the worst winter they had in 20 years, quote unquote, for what they told us. That's where I got a touch of frostbite, and that's where everybody was freezing to death to that because we were not prepared for that. The AAA gun battalion you have to understand, anti-aircraft, anti-tank, and artillery. So we could shoot at planes. I could shoot 20, 25,000 feet up at a plane. That same shell, 3 feet tall, going through armor piercing, I could go through a tank like a piece of glass to do it. Plus the fact that I could shoot 5 miles out. The French people were our friends. They did everything to help us. When they had people surrounded, our Americans, at that point, they could direct me, and we saved lives from annihilation because I could shoot 5 miles out and knock out the equipment, knock out the Germans. So it's all written in that same book that I talk about. He kept a diary of that book, and I didn't write the book. So it's available to anybody to see of what we did and what happened with those things. There were 5 men on a gun handling the dials to move the barrel of the gun up, down, sideways. 9 men to control ammunition. 9 men. Plus the fact that with the bullets, with the same thing with the shells, you put them in to a fuse center. Then somebody on the gun of the 5 men would pick it up, put it into the gun, the sergeant would blow the trigger, and that would be it. And I had 4 of these guns under my command, so I could, as far as I'm concerned, I could shoot 25 rounds a minute. And the big thing is, the shell had a fuse in it. So when it got to the designated height, 20,000, 25,000, whatever the planes were, the shell would explode. So they got 1,000 pieces of that shell at the planes. People think you shoot at a plane like you shoot at a person. No such thing. The shell explodes, and that's what hits the planes.
Did you keep track of how many planes you successfully shot?
Yeah. There was, well, I think we're credited for about 20 or 25, but the battalion is credited with about 75 planes.
Wow.
The highest amount of planes shot down in the entire First Army. Why would they pick a 9.5-ton gun to go in on the beach? Because of the planes, because of the infantry, because of everything else. We could protect the men. Because all they had was rifles or machine guns. And if you're shooting that kind of a gun, you don't do good. Well, 60% of my men were deaf in both ears. You have no idea what shooting that shells, 4 guns in a circle to do that. They had to lay mines into the ground. They put poles, trees that they cut down, put it into the water where they thought we were going to invade. Cut the trees, put bombs on the top and barbed wire on the bottom, figuring if we came in with the big ships, they'd blow us to hell with that. So there were so many different things that we found out afterwards that we had no way of knowing, of course, to do that. But I think that's what they needed with the labor. And I tell a story to that point that the men who were in charge, in their head, they became God. You do what I tell you or else you're dead. And they had the authority to do it. What they did with women and children, from what I saw, was unheard of, absolutely disgusting and terrible. But I have pictures of, they put 1,000 people into that barn. They were afraid that they were gonna identify the guardians or the people in charge. Because if we would have got them, it would have been a different story earlier. So they put 1,000 people into the barn, put hay and straw on the bottom with gasoline and burned it. So you could picture that. If you try to get out, they machine gunned you. And I've got pictures of that. People laying half under the ground and everything else. When I lecture about the war, I'm fine. When I lecture about the Holocaust, I don't sleep at night. That was that bad to see and to do and to go through and to understand the man's inhumanity of man.
Well, you've told us you were the procurement officer, and you have some absolutely stunning artifacts here. And I'd like for you to, if you don't mind, just tell us what they are and how they came into your possession.
Basically, these were pilots and men that carried them, but most of them were pilots that had these in it. And that, give me that one too. That's important. And this basically is the same thing with it. But I brought these back to that point. And this basically, I carried every day of the war because this saved my life. When they're shooting at you, when they're bombing or strafing you, you jump into a hole. If a German's in that hole, one of you are not coming out. You're not taking a rifle or a 9.5 ton gun in that hole. But I carried this every single day of the war.
And you have quite a collection of them.
Well, I have got 3 of these. And it was my job to go out and make sure the planes wouldn't fly anymore. So I found these things on the pilots and the planes. And it's one of the things, you know, when you're in war, you take anything that's going to help you or protect you or save you, because you don't know what it is. You're shot down, you get out of the plane if you're lucky enough, and then you got to learn to live. And you don't know where you are, because don't forget, if the pilot comes down and he gets out of that plane and he's in uniform, what do you think is going to happen to him? I had 65 men under me. And my job basically was to make sure their morale was good and to keep up their morale and stuff. So we didn't talk that much about anything else other than the fact of, hey, be safe, be sound. It's a team. We do everything we can to work together to save your life. All I did is I promised my men that I would do everything that I could to make sure they were safe and sound and bring them home alive. And we talked about that, you know, and kibitzing or joking, but I'll see you home. I'll see you here. I'll see you when we have a reunion. Just to take their mind off, because people have no idea what it is to be entranced into a war where you don't know from 1 minute to the next if you're going to live or die or step on a mine.
Yeah.
You know, people have no idea what it is to do that. When you're in the army, that's one thing, but in a war, it's another. When they're shooting at you, etc. with it. But I'm in the paper constantly with that because I lecture about it. I lecture about it, and people have to know the same way with a helmet. Taking the liner out of a helmet and showing people this is how we wash, this is how we brush our teeth, this is how we shaved. People have no idea. You wear a helmet, it's a 3-pound helmet, but it's great. But there's a liner in the helmet. Once the liner comes out, this is how you wash. You're in a field. This is how you brush your teeth. This is how you shave. I found an outhouse. I didn't know, when living in New Jersey, I didn't know what an outhouse was. I walked in, there was a little board with a hole in it. There. So I took it away from the German, brought it back to my outfit, and had the men make a 5-holder so my men could have a decent place to sit down to move their bowels. People have no idea, you know, what it is to do that. So all these different things added up to that point. So it was a helmet with washing, and then I found a farmer who was watering his field. I took a look, he had pipes and a shower head, you know, doing that. Took it away from him, or borrowed it, whatever you want to call it, you know. Took it away from, brought it back. First time my men had a shower in 3 months. The colonel came down to a compliment, the captain came down. But we had showers for the men. But people have no idea what it is to live the way we lived.
A couple of years ago, during the State of the Union address by the President of the United States, he had Sergeant Irving Locker stand up, and you got a standing ovation in the Capitol, didn't you?
Yeah, and then he took me into the Capitol House and sat and talked. And
15,000 young American men jumped from the sky, and 60,000 more stormed in from the sea to save our civilization from tyranny. Here with us tonight are 3 of those incredible heroes. Staff Sergeant Irving Locker and Sergeant Herman Zaitchik. Please.
what an experience for you to go to Washington, be recognized, go into the Oval Office.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go into the Oval Office, sit with them and kibitz with them and tell them jokes. And nobody knew about this. And they just said to me that you go with the veterans and you'll sit, you know, in the audience with World War II veterans. I said, okay, great. 10 minutes before, they came over to me and said to me, you're going into the gallery. I had no idea what, who, and how. And that's how I got into the gallery. And when he called me, I think I was the only one who could stand up at the time to do that. So, and from there, we talked about it. Then he took me to the White House.
How does Irving Locker stay so fit, so sharp, so bright, so positive at age 99? And by the way, when is your birthday?
November 8th.
November 8th. Okay, you're going to be 100 years old. How do you do it?
I work out constantly. I work out here. And we've got a gym. I work out, and you have to be mobile. You have to move around and be active, not only mentally but physically, to do that. But I work out, and my wife and I were ballroom dancers for many, many years, so we were very active, physically active. And here I work out at the gym and work out every place else that we could do. But you have to stay active. You can't sit around and do nothing, mentally or physically.
Well, now that's a reason for Jerry now to take me ballroom dancing, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It would be my pleasure, really and truly.
Well, I want to take this moment to bring over one of the main reasons that you're so bright.
My wife,
Your wife, Bernice,
of 75 years.
been married 75 years.
This is my wife, Bernice. We're married 75 years.
75 good years, 70 for me and 5 for Irving.
And I noticed you both have a great sense of humor. Does
Yes, we
that
do.
get you through?
We tell jokes all the time and make people laugh, and we have a good combination of that there. And we're two brothers married to two sisters, which is very, very unusual.
Ooh.
I went to school with Bernice's older sister. Introduced after the war, introduced my older brother to her. They got married, and because of that, we got together with the family. That's how I met Bernice.
And my sister loved her mother-in-law. I wanted that mother-in-law. No,
So-
no dummies.
That's the only reason she took me, was to get that mother-in-law. So,
And who is the better ballroom dancer?
Irving, he has to lead me.
yes, I'm a leader. See that? That's why I got a staff sergeant, because I'm a leader.
Well, thank you, Bernice, for coming over and letting us borrow him for a little while.
He loves it.
Mr. Locker, I know you've told me to call you Irvin, but it just doesn't seem right. You're so impressive. But I want to thank you for letting us be here today, and I know you have a message to share.
Yes, first let me thank you and your wife for doing it and coming over here to do it. The message that I have basically is that freedom is not free, and the amount of men that lost their lives or lost their limbs or are still in hospitals, and the sicknesses that came out of that war, crippled that came out of that war. So they have to appreciate it and know that freedom is not free, and know that when they see a veteran, they gotta thank a veteran, whether he's in uniform or not. They gotta thank him, because their life would have been different if we lost that war.
Wow, that was something, right? Can you imagine the energy and vitality at 99 years old?
Incredible stories. We are so honored that we got to do this today.
You really liked him, didn't you?
I sure did. He was my size, and I love that.
What a career, what a career. And like I said, a true hero, Irving Locker. We thank him so much for letting us come here today, and we're glad that you came along with us.
If you liked our video today, please press that like and subscribe button and share it with all your friends. Until next time.
See you when you get here.